The Central Bank of Nigeria has reduced the Cybersecurity Levy on electronic transactions from 0.5% to 0.005% in its new fiscal guidelines for 2024 to 2025. And this is following the controversial introduction of the levy earlier in the year, which was met with criticism from Nigerians, subsequently suspended by President Bola Tinubu in May 2024. But in a new development, the Apex Bank said it will continue to enforce the payments of the mandatory levy of 0.005% on all electronic transactions by banks and other financial institutions by the Cybercrime Act of 2015. The levy, introduced under the Cybercrime Prohibition Prevention Act of 2015, amended in 2024, is set to support the National Cybersecurity Fund, administered by the Office of the National Security Advisor. And to unpack this development is a business and social policy analyst, and that's Kenneth Ikenwa. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
All right. How do you anticipate the reduction of the cybersecurity levy from 0.5% to 0.005% will impact the financial behavior of businesses as well as consumers in Nigeria?
Well, I think it's a commendable initiative to see that in this time and season, given the trajectory and the character of the economy right now. The government is promoting the initiative to reduce rates, possibly reduce taxes that consumers have to be charged at this point in time. But we need to ask a bigger question that borders on macroeconomic issues. And I'm directing this question to the presidency and to the Central Bank of Nigeria. The question is Nigeria broke? Are we so broke that all we must do and all we must continue to do is to look for different ways and means to tax Nigerians, whether directly or indirectly? So coming back to your question with respect to how it will affect the financial or the behavior of financial institutions and consumers are beginning to get woke. I mean, I think that's a Gen Z language, so let me borrow that. They begin to get woke. And people are beginning to mind the way that they are taxed and begin to ask questions. So I hope that this will not be pushing the situation Nigerians have found themselves so far so hard. But if those monies and those levies are collected and used for the appropriate purpose, it is a welcome development. 0.005 may seem insignificant, but when you look at the power of numbers and the volume of cash transactions and transactions that go on in the country on a daily basis, a lot will be coming into the coffers of the government. But as this conversation unfolds, we will see what are the benefits, we will see what it will cost Nigerian people, both economically and socially, and most importantly, both psycho-spiritually or psycho-culturally. Let's see how it goes.
Okay, having said that, how do you think, the controversial introduction and also subsequent adjustment of the cybersecurity levy can affect public trust in government financial regulation as well as their policies?
Well, when it comes to trust, I've always emphasized, especially on News Central, that one of the major issues we're having in the country today is trust deficit. So there's a deficit of trust on the part of the people for government policies, for government officials, and every initiative, most initiatives that this present government and even previous government try to implement and try to promote. Now, when this situation is there, it could actually affect the productivity of the country and actually affect economic activities of the country. So people may begin to hold back expenditure. And when people begin to hold back expenditure and look for alternative means of survival, it will affect the economic trajectory, the growth and the development of the economy. And that would not seem well for the figures. We need to get people to spend money. Businesses need to get people to patronize them. But when people begin to fear or have the question of trust with respect to if I run this transaction this way, what comes back to me and what benefits? Taxation is actually a burden. But I hope that in the days ahead, we can actually see policies that will be unfolded, policies that will be implemented to convert this burden, this excess burden of taxation to benefits for every Nigerian, so that we can attain what in economics is called the Pareto optimality, or what we can otherwise call social efficiency. What we are seeing is that 20% of Nigerians seem to be benefiting from the present impasse economically, while another 80% of Nigerians, including myself, sad to say, seem to be struggling with the reality of what they need to live in terms of a reduction in the purchasing power parity of Nigerians. These are some of the things that we'll be coping with, and these are some of the predictors that would foster the trust deficit in Nigeria on the part of people for the present government going forward.
Now, when it comes to transparency, you talked about an interesting term there, talking about trust deficit. Having expatiated on how Nigerians can have a surplus trust in the government, what measures do you think the Central Bank and also Office of the National Security Advisor take to ensure transparency as well as accountability in the use of funds collected through this cybersecurity levy?
First and foremost, I completely disagree that that fund and those levies collected in whatever way or whatever means and aggregated should be controlled or should be oversighted by the Office of the National Security Advisor. National Security Advisor has nothing to do with cybersecurity. Cybersecurity should be something that each individual, each financial institution should take on themselves, and not the government ensuring that the cyberspace of Nigeria is protected. When you're talking of the cyberspace in the military sector or in the military angle, they're fine. You can begin to look at, oh, how do we protect our cyberspace for the military, for the police, and other law enforcement agencies. But when it comes to financial transactions, each institution should be the ones taking the initiative to actually protect their customers and protect their clients. So, in terms of what the central bank can actually do, I am hoping that this administration that came on board with all tenets of democracy and progressive economics will allow Nigerians, or will allow the Freedom of Information Bill to actually take root. One issue or one particular thing that the central bank must promote is to allow Nigerians to be able to dig deep into how these funds are collected, what funds are collected, and what they are actually being used for. So the major thing is for the central bank to now fashion out an open management policy or open book management policy that will make available to Nigerians how these monies are used, how these levies are collected, and how they are disbursed. Until then, people will just continue to thumb their nose and say it is business as usual. I hope Dr. Yemi Cardoso and those stakeholders involved will consider the larger stakeholders, which are the Nigerian people, and make sure that there's a lot of transparency, accountability, full disclosure, and open book management with respect to these fees. We may think that it's quite minute, but when you aggregate it over time, this will be running into trillions or billions on a yearly basis. And we hope that the money is collected will not just be used for cybersecurity, but for other things that will help with infrastructural development and economic growth.
We could go on and on. I wish we had more time, but thank you so much for your expertise on the news. Kenneth Ikenwa, business and social policy analyst. Many thanks indeed.